All right, we're back with Washed in the Wild. For everybody, we talked a lot about this name, and I did a little research today, and there's nothing on YouTube for this name, so
good.
I'm a fan of it, actually.
Didn't think about checking into that. Glad one of us did.
Well, I don't know if you did for yours, but Gentry for his, whatever he picked, I can't remember what it was. There was like 6 of them.
Oh, yeah, shoot.
So it was like, which one is this? Is this A, B, or C? So anyway.
Right.
I like it's got a ring to it, and we're unique. So
we are definitely that.
So it talked a little bit since last time. I think I shared this with you guys. The ice report here in North Dakota on the first week of December actually got out and caught some fish. Got a couple walleye in the freezer, and it was pretty cool. I was on a federal reserve. I like to fish on Audubon. And I'm almost first name basis with the warden out there. He's a pretty cool guy. He came over and, I don't know if you guys has experience with that, but every other time, it's like, small talk, and they're like, well, you need to see my license. Yeah, I need to see your license, right? And this time he's like, no, I already checked you out. I got your license plate. And I was like, well, that's cool.
Nice.
So he's
those guys got a tough job. They really have a tough job, and they deal with a lot of difficult situations. So for them to be, I don't know how you'd put it, pleasant every day is probably pretty difficult given some of the stuff they deal with. So we need to thank them for what they do, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, they probably do appreciate it when they pull up and all they have to do is check a license.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of routine, but I'm sure that it could get a lot worse at times. But how much ice is there?
5 inches.
5 inches.
That's what I told my wife.
Okay.
It might have been 4 where I was camping, but it was so I've gotten into camping, and maybe one of these days we'll do something from the ice. But I finally got a full floor, which made a huge difference as far as the insulation and everything. Anyways, it was fun. It's there's nothing more peaceful than being in the middle of nowhere on a sheet of ice. There's just no noise, right? Anywhere out there. And so yeah, it was an awesome night. The fishing could have been better, but I got to skip a day of work, so that was pretty cool too. So
did it shut off right at dark like it normally does?
So it didn't even pick up. Like it was the opposite. It was the opposite of what it usually is. And all right, so here's the story. Like I got one 17-inch walleye, just way after dark, and then nothing. I didn't see fish. I didn't mark fish. No bites. No nothing until the next day. And it was like 2 hours after light, and I got just a dink walleye, and then honestly I think God was messing with me with this one. So I don't know if you get those. I have this big hub shelter, right? It's pretty big, so I can sleep in it, and it was pretty windy on it was a Friday morning, right? And you get those things, and I've gotten pretty good with it to a point where there's a point of no return when you're taking this thing down, where you got to go, because otherwise this is going to turn to this big kite. So I popped the top 2 hubs out, or the roof, and I walk out of the house and I look over, and one of my flags up on one of my tip ups, because who takes out your tip ups, right? That's the last thing I do. Yeah. So that's where I think God is like, watch this. So it's like, forget this. I run over there, pull out. It was like a 16-inch walleye. It wasn't that bad. So I get it out, get it on the ice, and I look over at my house, and it's like a double hubbed, so it's like kinked in the middle, and I'm like, oh no, because that means it's just taking all the wind right in the side. So I go over there, and I grab it, and immediately it's like 3 feet in the air, and it's like 8 feet of house that I'm trying to get down, and there might have been some curse words and some other things said, but it was just all by myself, and you're just like, got it all down.
I wish I could have stood back and watched
that. Yeah, I'm sure you would have. That was actually okay. So that I didn't mean for that, but that fits in because I've this might be kind of prideful. That's the first time that I've had that bad of a house tear down. Either I've been really blessed; it's not that windy, or I was like, okay, this is how this is going to go, and nothing else got in the way, and that's what happens. Life happens.
Did you damage your house?
No, I didn't. I'm pretty I'm not anal about a lot of things in this world, but like
Wait.
that thing,
That's another
baby that. Yeah,
That's funny.
I've seen your setup, dude.
I know. I changed it a little bit this year too, but no, I baby that thing a lot. So when I tear it down, I make sure it's not, the hubs aren't inside each other, and then when I take it home, it sets up in the garage. My poor truck sits outside, and that thing sits in the garage and gets dried out and all those
So
things.
by change, you mean you turn the rods in the other direction in your box?
Yes. No, I got different. I got different tip ups this year.
Okay.
It's a big. It's like changing ammo. I think. I don't know. It's for me it was a big deal. So anyhow, what I wanted to get into tonight is firsts, and we'll get into a lot of different things tonight, but it being Christmas season, do you guys, kind of picture in your head those times or that first gift that you got? Do you guys ever remember something that was like, man, I wanted that, and you wished for it and wished for it? Like for me, it was this gigantic G.I. Joe machine, and it was this super cool toy, and I stared at it in the toy store for like a long time. Probably was like a month, but it was, I don't know. I thought it was a long time, years. It felt like to me. And when I got it, it was like this, yes, and I was so happy, and I remember at the time, like there wasn't anything. I was probably like 8, probably not even that, So I wasn't really going to give anything back to my parents or anything like that, and it was just like I got, I don't have anything that I can give back. It was just this blessing that they laid on me, right? And it was a super cool moment. And there's this one of the scriptures that I kind of want to go over today is one of those Sunday school scriptures where it's in Mark chapter 10. It's the story of when Jesus, the children are coming to him, right, and the disciples are chasing them all off. But those kids come to him, and Jesus wants to bless them, and the disciples are like, "Get out of here! He doesn't have time for that." And he was like, "No, come here. This is why I'm here. Like that's it. That's what we all need to be like. It's those kids that are just like, I got nothing to give. I'm just here, and I want a blessing from my Father, right? And how profound that is, right? And some of the things that we do that, you and I have got the ability to teach kids, right? And to do something simple like whether it's tying a knot or catching a fish, how amazing that is to bless someone. And it doesn't really age, I don't think matters. Like, you guys, we talked about you taking Mike out and how it's just knowledge is an equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or if you're 10. If you've never shot a rifle before, you're the same skill level, right?
The hard part though is trying to keep, so as a mentor, you want whoever it is to be successful, right? And so the hard part is making sure that it's about the hunt and not about your success, right? Because I catch myself sometimes. It's more them being successful is my success, right? And so sometimes I get caught up in that, and I have to stop myself, and because I can get frustrated, and because it's usually something I did wrong. But especially with deer, I think is probably the hardest one for me. Is that I kind of start to think about me instead of the person that I've got with me, and so that's something to be cognizant of if you get into this and start trying to mentor people, or if you do mentor people. I mean, I've heard dads talk about it with their kids, and I kind of feel like I ruined Reyer because I was at a stage in my hunting life where I was starting to pursue specific animals and a certain age class of animals and stuff like that, and because I could fill the freezer with those, and that was easy. So and then when comes time for him to start, he's passing up deer that I wouldn't have passed up in a million years.
I wouldn't say you ruined him. I'd say you blessed him. That's phenomenal. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it was the change that we had experienced around that time because, all I had ever done was hunt up in New Hampshire where, there's no shortage of deer relative to here, but because of the cover and the landscape, you just don't see them. And a lot of times they don't have an opportunity to get quite as mature, not as much agriculture like you were talking about last week with the farmers and ranchers. I mean, they just don't have,
there's a lot more hunters.
There's a lot more hunters, and they don't have the same kind of Midwest style of food and water and shelter and the way that those things interact. So anyway, I had hunted for 7 years before we moved here for deer, and I killed 2 does in that period. Missed another. I don't think I ever got a shot at a buck. So then coming out to North Dakota and seeing, at times 20 different bucks in a day of 2 different species was like, well, geez, like what am I in such a rush for, So it became a little too easy to, it was almost like a culture shock of hunting in a way because I was so stunned at what I was experiencing. But I understand why you were frustrated. And I think I would have been too in that position. I mean, it worked out. I was able to harvest a great deer that year, but in years following, that was not the case. So you never know.
Never pass up on day one what you'll shoot on the last day,
which is words to live by. I don't know if I've been burnt by that yet, but I'll tell the story a little bit later. But Eli and I may have gotten that. Anyways, it was. I hear you there. So one of the things, if we talked a lot about first. If you guys, we shared a little bit about where we were last year, or last week, but kind of share like who. Well, hunting or fishing, I guess it doesn't matter. Do you guys have some mentors that poured into you that really got you where? Instilled that love of the outdoors in you?
Yeah, my dad and my brother Joe. I mean, the whole family hunted. So like I said, on our first episode, it was just a way of life. It wasn't, I don't know. I don't know any better. So it was a way of life. It's just what you did, and it was everybody, boys and girls. So, but my dad and my brother Joe, I think more than anything, they taught me woodsmanship. They taught me how to read sign, how to get to and find my way out of the woods, and it was, you're never lost. You're just a mite confused every once in a while. And that understanding, if you're back in the Northeast where it's, I think, 85 to 90% forested and mountainous, then not Rockies Mountains, but mountainous, it's real easy to get, as we used to call it, turned around. And so I think they taught me more about that stuff. And then really diving into hunting came from my education, and then living in Missouri and living in New York and now coming here and stuff. It's just, you have to change everywhere you go. But yeah, they're the ones that instilled it in me. And I was lucky enough, being the youngest son out of 7 kids, and I got 5 older brothers, that it was my dad and my brother Joe and I who did all the drives. And I can remember, it's kind of not the greatest story for my other brothers, but when my dad would say, you're going to tell them they're going to go sit on stand, and they want to make the drive, and he would say, you don't know where you're going, he does.
Yeah.
Type of thing. And so it's kind of a big deal for the youngest to be able to do that. So, but yeah, they taught me woodmanship. It drives my wife nuts because, she's like, you can walk to a blade of grass in the pitch dark 3 miles away, but you can't find out, you don't remember where, McDonald's is in Bismarck.
Can't find the stupid car in the parking.
There's
lot,
just
man.
that's not exciting to be in town. So
yeah, it's easier to get to remember where things are when you're actually interested in them.
Yeah,
versus that's why I struggle with a lot of things in town, because it's like, well, I'll find my way there eventually, and not in that much of a rush. But then when you're out deer hunting, it's like, I got to get to that rock that's 1.5 miles away in the next 5 minutes, and I don't know if that's possible. But it's a little more motivating. But
yeah.
Or you get on that deer and you just, when you got to walk or crawl 10 yards, and okay, there's that piece of sage, and there's that, and I'm gonna get to here, and it's gonna take me 10 minutes to get to here, and anyways, that's I hear you. That's such a cool experience when you're in it and all the intricate details around you,
and you pick the wrong rock or the wrong plum bush or the wrong sage bush, or
almost
the
every
wrong
single
tree.
Time. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're looking in the wrong spot. So,
but I have a similar background. Obviously, it's kind of a once removed, but that same source of influence as you in terms of obviously you're my mentor, being my dad, and that I was able to spend a few years hunting with a good portion of our extended family on your side up in New Hampshire, which is definitely one of the best memories that I have. Is it always comes back to Thanksgiving for me. We would always hunt Thanksgiving, and everybody would be in the same house. When it was time to eat, you'd all come back, share a bunch of hunting stories, what you saw the morning, what you've been seeing throughout the season, if you guys hadn't seen each other since it started, and then you eat a bunch of food and take a nap, maybe watch a little football, then you go out and sit the evening as well. And that's something that I've recently learned is fairly uncommon, is going out and hunting on Thanksgiving. Being pretty freshly married, it was like that was one of the things that my wife, struggled, I think, to get used to a little bit. Is I just said, like, oh, doesn't everybody hunt on Thanksgiving? And she's just like, no, we're all getting ready for the day. We're cooking food. We're doing things for everybody else. And I was just like, I never really thought of that. Like that there's actually other stuff going on. But it was really awesome to be able to experience that. And I kind of have 3 stages of that. One being that, my extended family and my dad kind of in the place where he grew up, and then of course us kind of you mentoring me, but also kind of learning simultaneously once we moved out here, because it was a new experience for you, and I was following in your footsteps while you were kind of treading on a new trail and learning a new style of hunting, which was really cool for us. I mean, I don't think I hunted with anybody else. I had hunted alone, but I hadn't hunted with anybody else besides you until I was like 15 years old. And I was taking somebody else that was, 20 years older than me at that point. So, there was a lot of growth for me from the hunts that we were able to do together. And then that third stage was I was able to move out to Montana for a couple years during that COVID time frame. Finished up my degree out there, and because of COVID and online and everything closed, I was able to do a ton of hunting. And honestly, I had some influence by some people that I followed online, because I didn't really know anybody out there. And I found this one guy that was an elk guide, and he was doing, a podcast. And I didn't really know anybody that had hunted elk. I didn't really know anybody that had hunted in the Rocky Mountains or hunted in grizzly country. And so that was all pretty new to me. And so I had conversations with my dad, like, after almost every time I went out hunting, I'd call him and just be like, oh, this is what I heard this guy say on this podcast, and then it happened today in the woods or something like that. So it was cool to be able to kind of loop him into that. And then a couple years ago, we were able to go out to Colorado together with him with an elk tag in his pocket. And that was another first for our family, as far back as any of us know, is he was able to wrap his tag around an awesome bull elk in a wilderness area up in the mountains in Colorado. And so being able to see that kind of come full circle was pretty extraordinary, and that's another one that just kind of learning together, I think, is.
Yeah, you were teaching me there, though, right? Because I was asking you questions, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, so.
But isn't that super gratifying? As it's almost like, well, obviously you're father and son here, but when you can. Well, were you there when he was teaching somebody else? Hey, you've shared.
I'm the one that put him in the situation.
Yeah,
like Reyer will take you.
Yeah, isn't that cool to see? When you're, and some of it's from you, and some of it's like, wow, that's pretty smart. I'm going to try that. Like.
Well, it's the thing of it is I'm going to use different terms in the way I usually do it, but when you're walking behind somebody all the time, whether you're the mentee or it's Reyer, your son or your daughter or whomever it is, that person walking behind you all the time, they're learning some.
Yeah.
Right? But what are they doing? They're following.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you send them on their own or they have to take somebody else, that's when they really start to learn.
Yep.
Right? Because that's our thing with new hunters. Like we take new hunters, kind of our deal is we'll do it for a couple of years and then, you
got to
go on your own because that's when you're really going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's when you actually start to learn is because now it's up to you to navigate. It's up to you to read sign. It's up to you to make the decisions. You learn more from the mistake that you make than the mistake that I made while you were following me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it really starts to evolve. And that's why people being mentors in the outdoors for whatever it is, it doesn't have to be hunting. It can be, it could be fishing. It could be, hiking in the Rockies, being around grizzlies. How do you deal with that? That's something that I'm not accustomed to, right? I grew up with black bears and they don't bother me in the slightest, but I also grew up with them.
Yep.
So I don't really think about it, but that's, I think probably, and I say this all the time and Reyer says, I don't know about that, but it's true. Cause I look back on where I was at Reyer's age as a hunter, and he's 100 times more advanced than I was at that time. Right, because of all the experiences that he's had.
Well, you're a successful mentor then.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that I would say that.
Father
because
will say that.
He takes and puts his own spin on it, which is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Now if we're stalking a deer together, now it's two minds thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly helps with the second guessing part. Right, because I don't know if you guys experience it, but you're like, I got a plan. This is how I'm getting to that animal. You start it, and then you go, no, I think I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're stuck going, which way am I going? Should I do what I originally thought, or should I do this new thing? And it's really cool having somebody with you because they can be like, no, that's dumb. Don't do that. Let's stick with the original plan. And like those stocks and stuff, they evolve as they happen. So
yeah,
listen. When we first started doing this, we might have been successful 1 out of 10 stocks. And now it's probably, more towards the 5 or 6 out of 10 times, that we're successful. And so that's just, I don't think you're ever going to bat 1,000. So
yeah, but I don't think it would be fun if you did. I think you would get sick of it. That's, it's part of it's that coming back on the,
he's still young enough. He's laughing. He's like, no, it'd be kind of cool to bat 1,000.
It's like, yeah, I could try it out for a couple of years and let you know if it's fun.
But all your
I think
best
I'd
stories, right, are the misses, right? Most
of them.
I mean, yeah, sure, it's great to kill an animal, but man, when you so many those things where you're like, that's why that deer is big. Right. That's a smart critter. Like he just outfoxed me. Right.
And I would say something that I just kind of realized just now is that most of our good success stories actually, most of the story is a failure that then led up to the success. Just like this year we had that experience. I mean, we had a buck that was bedded for 45 minutes, legs sprawled out, thought we had him dead to rights. And about, a minute and a half before I got into position, he just decided to stand up and walk away. And then, in the process of trying to find him later in the day, we found another mature buck and were able to knock him down. So, but just like that, like if it was just the second part of the story, just I saw the deer and I shot it and it fell, that's great. But yeah, there's a lot of really good stories that I think most of the best ones, at least even the successes, have a failure that leads up to them. So, like my dad said, that's kind of how you learn. And I think that's part of the value in taking other people is, for both the failures and the successes, like not only is that person learning about whatever it is that you're doing, the techniques, whether it's, what lure to use or how to set a tip up for a certain fish or when to shoot, when not to shoot in a given situation, but also you as the mentor, I think is one of the best places to learn. Because I think that that pretty much goes for anything. The more that you have the opportunity to teach somebody else to do something, even just explaining it with words, but also especially doing the actions is one of the best learning processes that will make you a better hunter or a better fisherman. I think that's how you tell. A lot of times you tell that somebody's a real expert on something is when they can explain it to you who knows nothing about it, and they can make you understand something that's very complicated in a matter of a couple minutes, because they're able to dumb it down. Like, it doesn't, just because they use, regular terminology or whatever, doesn't mean they're any less smart. In fact, I think a lot of times it actually means they're smarter.
Agreed.
So.
Yeah, well, one of the tricks that I use, and Reyer knows this, is, you're walking along and all of a sudden I stop and turn and look at you and go, "Where's the truck?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, navigation.
And at first it's deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
With Michael this year, he's stopping to glass things, and he's apologizing because it was a rock.
Yeah.
Or it was a bush or something. I'm like, don't apologize. Anything that to you looks out of place, check
it out.
Right? Because trust me, there are certain rocks where we have been hunting the last 10 years, 11 years. We both class them 20 or 30 times every season.
Yep.
There's one in particular. It's been 10 years, and I know for a fact that the next time I see it, I'm going to look at it in the binoculars, even though I know what it is.
But the time you don't look,
there's deer laying in front of it.
Yeah, there was a fence post, Reyer's first deer season out here, that there was a fence post on this property that's got a white wrapper, like a plastic wrapper around the top of it. It's not a post. I don't even know why it's there.
Yeah.
And we were making a stalk on a deer. And Reyer said, "There's a deer right there, Dad." And I glanced, and I'm like, "It's that post," because it was in the general vicinity. And we moved again, and we actually had another first-timer with us. And we stop, and I'm trying to find the best approach, trying to find this deer, and he says, "Dad, that's a deer standing there," right? And I'm like, "It's the post." Well, the third time, he says, we move again, and the third time he says, "Dad, that's a deer." And I'm like, all right, I'm throwing my binoculars up, and here's the buck that we've been looking for. He's been standing there. Now, this wasn't like 100 yards away. This was quite a ways off, but because I had it programmed in my mind.
Yep.
Right? So I did exactly what I tell people not to do. Should have glassed it. Right? And that ended up being a spectacular animal that we had a chance at. But yeah, so it's how inquisitive people are too, like asking questions. And I think sometimes we as mentors have to respect that.
Absolutely.
Right? And try to become a kid again. And, it's like Pastor Kurt when I took him turkey hunting the first time. I told him as we're driving there, I was like, "Just so you understand, you're about to step into my church." And it took him till the second time, but he understood. But, that second time we went out, we're walking in. Of course, it's dark. We're running a little behind, so when we have to go in a different way because we had some flooding, and so I'm kind of trucking along pretty quick to get in on these birds, and I hear his listen for footsteps, and he stops. So I stop, and I turn and look over my shoulder, and I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "I get it." And I go, "You get what?" And he goes, I get it. And he's just looking up and around, like in awe with a grin on his face. And he's like, I understand what you were talking about now. Because the spring is like, I don't know. The springs are the best mornings there are because of the birds and geese and turkeys gobbling and, owls and wood ducks crying going by and things like that. I mean, it's pretty amazing, but we need to remember that too.
Absolutely. And well, okay, so you kind of touched on it. And for some people, this might be a no-brainer, but why do you what do you as the mentor get out of teaching somebody? I mean, you hit it right there. Like that's for me. Exactly what you just described. When you can have somebody who's never experienced, whether it's a morning in the spring or mornings are awesome all the time. You get that sunrise in November or a sunrise in the summer, whatever it might be. If you just haven't experienced something like that and been out, get up early, do all the things, you do all your prep work, and you're out there, and it's just like, whoa, like that. I got a video
out at Alkaline with all the waterfowl that day.
There's so many but that was spectacular.
Yes,
those ducks. I've never seen ducks like that before, and you're sitting there spotting them all, and it was like, this is amazing, right? And when you can introduce someone to a new experience like that, it's that I get just as much fun out of it than I think that they do, right?
Yeah, he's probably sick of telling, hey, those are speckle bellies. There's another group of specks. There's more specks, He's probably just like, Dad, I get it. They're speckle bellies,
No, it's helpful because I look at them, I'm just like, I just see black shapes. Like, I don't quite know how you're identifying. I get it with between cranes and geese and ducks, and then even sometimes the mallards versus the teal, big, small, like that. I don't quite have the wing beats, if I'm not hearing the sounds, so I do appreciate it when you do that, because I'm I try to look for patterns most of the time to absolutely no avail, but that's how I've learned what I have learned. Is just kind of your quirks or whatever you might call them, like that you do. It definitely helped me. So it doesn't go to waste entirely.
Yeah, but I think your mother gets frustrated with me going, deer. There's
Probably.
a deer. There's a turkey.
Probably. Yeah, I'm in the opposite situation. My wife is the one who spots 90% of the deer whenever we're out together on the road. I don't know what it is. She's just got some very good eyes, but there's a lot of times where she's like, oh, there's a deer. And I'm just like, I got nothing. I can't see it. I have no idea. So
I'm driving.
But I will say, times that we've slowed down or whatever to look, pretty much every time there's one there. So yeah, she's got good eyes for them. But I think my kind of thoughts on what you asked about why you do it as a mentor, kind of like what I said earlier. I think selfishly it makes you a better hunter or fisherman or whatever it is you're doing, which I think that's important. I think it's also for an even bigger reason, kind of like what you talked about with Kurt, is it's an opportunity to share something spiritual with somebody that I don't personally feel that I have the means to do with words. I would love to be able to, evangelize and talk to people and share the gospel in a really effective way. And I'm sure that I could with practice. I think anybody could. But that's one way that for me, I'm I know fairly well that I can take somebody out here, and if they're paying attention, they'll get something out of it that's spiritual, whether or not they believe in God or whatever it is that they're focused on. Obviously my hope is that it leads them to the same conclusions that I've drawn, but anything in that direction is helpful. And I think that community is a really important part of our faith, whatever that looks like. But I also think that solitude is a really important part. And I think that they're both necessary. And so being out there, even if you're with somebody, it still can be very solitary, when you're sitting quietly watching the world turn, watching the dew dry, whatever you want to call it. I think it's really profound to experience that solitude, because we are, as people, we are made for community. We're made for relationships. Like, that's what God put us here for. But I think that it's really important, for yourself and your own relationships, and for those around you, that you can be comfortable in solitude. And I think that, while it may be earthly solitude, like you said, it's one of those times where, I often find myself closest to God, and I don't think that takes away from the necessity of the church and the importance of showing up on Sundays, but it definitely is something that I think God's providing the most important part of that. And another analogy that I think of is like with taking somebody or going myself, like, you're accomplishing something, especially when you succeed, you work towards something, you accomplish it. And there's a lot of things in life where that happens, whether you're building something or, doing something at work or whatever it may be. But that's one of the few things that I think that you can accomplish from your own hard work, but then really ultimately it doesn't matter how hard you work. It still depends on God to pull through in the end. And I mean, that's the case for everything. But like, if I take this board and nail it to this other board and keep doing that till the thing is built, like I did that. Like God gave me the ability to, but I did that. And I think it's easy to fall in that prideful trap of like, I ran this, I did this. This is this is something that I did, and forgetting about Him in that process. But hunting is one of those things, or fishing, especially fishing, is one of those things where it doesn't matter how hard you work. You need that. If you want to call it luck, but I would call it God. You need Him to pull through and say, this is your opportunity, and there's so many things that have to align in order for it to work out that it's really, really difficult to, I think, come out of that with a sense of pride of like, oh, I'm awesome. Yeah. Because like we said earlier, usually you screw up along the way too. So. Yeah,
your failures definitely outnumber your successes, right? I hadn't thought about it, but from what you were talking about, patience is and just slowing down, the letting work go, putting your phone down, and just like experience the moment, right? How often do we, in my work and all the things that you do, you just forget that. And I think there are people that don't experience that at all. It's just go all the time. And it's like, no, hey, did you see that right there? You just missed that.
Yes.
Yeah. And to your point, that's one thing that as mentors, I have to check myself and like, hey, you just come on, just experience that thing right there, and
you can't force it.
Yeah, you can't force it. Because if you do, then it's just like they're not going to enjoy it, right? And how you experience that with them really is going to be is going to make the situation or not. I don't know if this will be a quick story, but I ran into that this year. My other son, Eli, by the way, Gentry's sick. We can make fun of him all we want here. But so my other son, Eli, he had his youth tag this year, and it was a spectacular year. I could take hours telling you about the hunts that we had. But so we hunt in similar areas, and so we had a tale of 2 weekends. The first, so he didn't get anything in the youth season, and we were hunting in the normal season, rifle season, and we went out, got on this buck right away, kind of look at what you guys were talking about, just bedded down, legs out. He's just lulling sleep, and I was, so I'm learning all the things that you're talking about, Matt, and it was, I'm in front, I'm doing all the things, set his gun up, got all the thing ready to go, and was like, okay, kill him. And it just, like, he just wasn't ready. He got up, and like the buck got up, and he shot, and complete miss, and then we're just like, oh no, but like all the things that buck then led us to a group of does and another buck, and so we got on that buck, and it's a spectacular story, but long story short, they led us to probably like a group of 40 mule deer. And we're sitting watching them, and I was like, buddy, there's no way we're going to get down there because there's 40 eyes staring at us. And I was like, we gotta go this way. And the whole time I'm leading, I'm doing all the things, right? And we get down in the stream bed, and I walk, and I get them all set up, you know, kind of the gun set up, pointing where it needs to be, and I can't see anything. I'm just seeing like one doe where there should be like 40 over a hill. And so I like walk off to and we're at the bottom of this clay pan. Like there's no grass around us. I mean, it's like 2-inch grass, right? If anything. And so I go up on this hill, and my son Eli's in the bottom, kind of in this bowl between two hills. And I'm looking, I can't see anything. And all of a sudden I look over at him, and like, you know how you have those snapshot photos of an image in the world? So this buck that we've been chasing all day long it's me, and then my son Eli, and then on the other side of him is this buck. It's probably like 80 yards away, bedded down and just staring at him. And there's nothing between us. Like the fact that deer sat there and stared at us, they had to have been watched us the whole way in, and just sat and looked at us. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm trying to signal to, because I'm probably like 90, 100 yards away, and I'm trying to signal to him, you know, and he's just not getting it. And then all of a sudden, I'm crawling back, and he's looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, look over there. And anyhow, long story short, the buck gets up and does the muley thing, you know, gets all proud on this little knoll, and he tries to, Eli finally sees him and tries to get on him. And because I wasn't right there telling him, you know, look here, do this. He wasn't ready. He wasn't prepared. He didn't take the shot. Right. You know, and I was probably like 30 yards away, and you could just see the failure in him. And I was like, in this moment, he's either going to love hunting or hate it, depending on how you handle this. Right. And so I walked up to him, and I was like, that was amazing. Like, how did that never happens. Like that has never, ever happened to me before, where you walk into an area and there's a mature buck 90 yards away from you. You don't even know he's there, you know, and you know, like the fact that we walked into his house, right, and got that close to him was spectacular in its own right. And there was a cool story after that. Even after that day was so spectacular. But so that weekend, you know, was kind of like, oh man, you know, I didn't even know if, you know, is he on when he's shooting? And, you know, kind of, we went home and, you know, just kind of got him to the point where he was comfortable, and, you know, just the mechanics of shooting. And maybe that's something we can talk to about another day. But, you know, those folks that are unfortunately left eye dominant and right-handed, which is my son Eli. Oh, that's right. Too, that's yep. Reyer, yeah. And so that was part of it too, you know, just getting yourself comfortable to pull the trigger. So I didn't know that, Reyer.
Make him change.
Well, so he's right. Yeah.
He didn't like me when I told him nope, because I was just watching what he was doing. He was young and watching what he was doing, and I realized, I'm like, I think he's left eye dominant, and it's a trait. I think it's hereditary in my family, because my dad's right-handed, shot left-handed. My brother Joe, right-handed, shoots left-handed. He's, you know, left eye dominant.
Yeah.
And so I made him switch. I said, get on the other side. And he wasn't too happy with me.
So are you left-handed?
No, I do everything right-handed.
You're just
I shoot left-handed. I could relatively easily shoot right-handed. I think it's nice to be that way, because you're more coordinated on the side you don't normally shoot with. So if you want to learn to shoot after the fact on your non-dominant side, that is actually still your dominant side, you know, it's still, I feel like it's easier. Like archery was a big thing for me, working in a bow shop for a few years. Like you're basically useless if you can't shoot a right-handed bow in a bow shop.
Yeah.
You know, you can get by for a while without having to shoot a left-handed bow, but being a lefty, you know, you can't shoot a right-handed bow. You're not much of a bow tech. So I taught myself to shoot right-handed after only having shot left-handed. And I mean, I was shooting 70, 75 pounds on my left side and had to start at about 40 pounds on my right side, because I just couldn't draw a bow back with much more than that. But I mean, within, I don't know, probably a year, I was shooting 80-pound bows on my right side, and
Dang.
I shot. It was like it was like a different person shooting. I preferred a different style of release. I had different anchor points. Like, it was an entirely different thing. I drew the bow differently. But I think it was easier to learn because of the fact that I'm, physically more coordinated with that side. So that's a shout out to all the people that are cross dominant.
Yeah.
I think you're lucky.
Well, and the thing of it is, though, is the eye dominance is a big deal, especially when you're wing shooting and so on, because, really you need to learn to shoot like a shotgun with both eyes open.
Yep.
Shooting a bow with both eyes open. I mean, I forced myself when I was like, 28 years old to shoot with both eyes open. Even though I'm right eye dominant, I just always been taught to close your left eye when you're looking at a sight.
Yep.
As soon as I started, got it to the point where it was automatic. Shooting with both eyes open.
Yeah.
Now I started seeing arrow impacts that I wouldn't have seen before on animals.
Definitely.
Seeing trees or branches as the animal's moving through, and you're at full draw and you're going to take a shot, but with both eyes open, you pick up that other limb or whatever it is in the way. So, I think it's helpful. But then that's, whether it was right or wrong, I forced him to change. So
no, it was good. I mean, part of the reason, if I remember right, that you did was because you saw me looking down the scope with my left eye and had the gun on my right shoulder, which is not a good way to start. So,
Well, that's what you do. That's what Eli did.
Because at first it was just get him used to recoil, get him used to the sound and all that stuff, and I wouldn't really care how accurate he was.
Yep.
It was just get used to it.
Yep.
I don't want you to be afraid. And then when we started getting a little more serious, when he's getting ready to go deer hunting for the first time, and we're starting to, all right, now we're going to get accurate, and I really started paying more attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, uh-oh, we need to change. So better to change then than it would be if you had to try to do it when you're
definitely. It's a pain to
18.
find left-handed stuff, but I think it was worth it. So, because most of the stuff was shoot is right-handed anyway, but
So you fully made the switch now. You're right-handed.
No, I still shoot everything left-handed.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah,
I
he's
still
left eye
do.
dominant. He's right-handed, but he's left eye dominant.
I still shoot everything left-handed. I just, I'll shoot right-handed rifles with my left hand. Obviously, you can't do that with a bow, so I have a lefty bow, but, I could shoot a righty bow. I wouldn't prefer to, but yeah, I mean, I've just stuck with it. I finally got a custom rifle a couple years ago, or 5 years ago now, that left-handed, so that's my main wheels during the rifle season, but, yeah. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to know about your mentor, Dan.
Oh, I have a little different story. My dad has taught me a lot of things in my life, but just hunting and fishing wasn't one of his passions, right? So I had brothers too. I had two brothers. My oldest brother, Travis, really, he's probably 6 years older than me, so. If I got to go with him, it was like, yeah, go walk through that, right?
I understand.
And it was just kind of different phases in life. So I had one of the best experiences. I just shared the experience of Eli's youth hunt, but one of my best friends in high school, his dad took us on a deer hunt out to the Badlands for his youth hunt out there, and it was like the first road, guys' road trip where my parents weren't there. So it was this, to this day, that was one of the most phenomenal experiences. Like, the first time I heard a deer blow it, it was actually an antelope. The first time I heard that, it was like, what was that?
Yeah.
And they're like, it's blowing at us, be quiet. And I was like, what do you mean? What? They're like, shh. We camped in the grasslands. It was, and if you're, that's a super cool thing that we have here in North Dakota, that we can do that. But yeah, he, that same guy, I could tell you, Marvin is his name, and I could tell you stories about him. This just real briefly. The first duck I ever shot. We're in the slough. We jump it. We shoot this duck, and it's like in 4 feet of water, and we got boots that are up to our knees, and it's like, we got to go get this duck. And it's cold. I mean, it is cold outside. So we're in, and finally, we're at that point. We're almost reaching it, and finally it's like, just let we're go. And we're both like all the way up to our crotches. We're just wet. Come stomping out like, hey, Marvin, check this thing out. And he's like, hey, boys, you know what that is? And they're like, yeah. No, I don't know what that is. And he's like, that's a coot. And they're like, oh. He's like, you know how you cook a coot? And I was like, no, what do you do? He's put this in a rock in a pot, and he grabs the thing, backs off, and hucks the thing in the air. And he's like, you boil it, and then when the rock's soft, you eat the rock. And we're both like, ah.
That's a good one.
But he taught me, like, he taught me how to, like, work brush, walk quietly, just all those little things that, that you need to learn, right? And that was, and then, and I appreciate you sharing that, because then you hunt with your friends, and you kind of realize, well, I'm not hunting with that guy no more. He never gets up. I'm sitting outside of his house for an hour while he wakes up in the morning, or they're shooting over my head or something like that, and it's like, I ain't doing that no more, right? So, and I, unfortunately, you can have some, fishing's a little bit more forgiving, but when you're talking hunting, we've talked a lot about that too. Like, gun safety is a big deal.
Huge.
And calling that stuff out, no matter who it is, like whether it's me or my brothers when I'm hunting with them, it's like, hey, I should not see down your barrel ever, right? And making a big deal about that with kids, it's that's a hard one, because you got to walk a line there too. But anyways,
I don't know. I scared my kids to death whenever they did that the first time, and wasn't easy for my heart to see my kids that upset, because I jumped on them, but I wanted them to never forget, ever, right?
It worked.
It's kind of one of those things with the grandkids now. They're, pewing, as they call it. They're not shooting, but they're pewing deer on TV, and I don't know, we were watching a turkey video that's like 95 turkey kill shots in a 15-minute period of time, and we watched it probably 10 or 15 times because they just like watching it. So now they pew everything, and they pew like a person.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't do that. Right? And so, like, we're talking about 3-year-olds. This is how important gun safety is, to your point. They're 3 years old. They don't get to point their finger at a person because they don't understand yet. But if you can start that then, right, by the time they start to, you give them the opportunity to begin to start handling a firearm, I think there's a level of respect there.
Yeah.
Right? That they already have, because for 3 years or whatever, depends on the kid, 3 or 4 or 5 years, they're constantly being told you don't do that.
Yep.
Well, I think a big part of that too is that it's before their like conscious memory really is developing. So like, granted, can a 5-year-old remember some stuff from when they were 3? Probably, but like a 10-year-old's not going to remember stuff from when they were 3, most likely. So then they're going to think, well, this is just how it's been as long as I can remember.
Yeah, they don't know any better.
I think that is, you might call it a little bit of brainwashing, but if there's something to brainwash about, that would be one of the things.
Well, gun safety, ethics. Right,
yeah, absolutely.
Not shooting at a skylined animal, not shooting towards a vehicle or towards a house, or,
know what's on the other side of that thing.
Know what's on the other side, and we've passed animals because, really good animals, because, they're skylined.
Happened to me this year. I got 10 minutes of footage of a nice white or a nice mule deer that's skylined at 300 yards, and I just never got a shot. So it's frustrating as all get out, but you gotta stay disciplined with that stuff. There's no room for any kind of, no room for error.
Well, it's easy to say in North Dakota there's nothing out there.
Correct.
But there is stuff.
But there's hunters out there.
There's hunters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's
buildings and cattle.
Yeah.
And, that pickup where somebody's checking cattle, and so those things are things that, we've tried to instill into everybody we take, right? And make sure they understand
Yep.
those things, because that's just as important as knowing how to get back to the truck,
Absolutely.
you know. But, you know, one of the biggest things for me, and I think people confuse this with a passage in the Bible, is that, you know, when you mentor somebody, you're teaching them how to go, you know, harvest a fish, harvest an animal, harvest whatever it is. And what's the saying? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day.
Mm-hmm.
Teach him to fish, you feed him for his lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's some reference in the book of Matthew where, you know, Jesus talks about the disciples going out being fishers of men.
Mm-hmm.
Back to
Yeah.
our fishers men here at New Song. That's probably one of the only references there. That's actually there's some argument between whether that's a British novelist or a Chinese philosopher that came up with that. But it's true. I mean, if you think about it, you teach somebody how to do that. Now they have something to teach, you know, their friends and family. And for me, it's one, I want people to appreciate the outdoors. Nowadays, it's become just really safe source protein. I think we mentioned it, you know, last week. But so people are coming for a different reason. But if they appreciate the outdoors, I think there's a few things they learn. I think they learn that hunters aren't these bad people that they kind of get made out to be. Mm-hmm. I think that they get to see things in nature that, as Reyer talked about before, probably makes them start, you know, if they don't have faith, starts to make them question whether maybe they should. Yeah. Because you see things that how do you do that? Mm. You know, some of the colors you see in the sky, or we had a situation duck hunting this year, terrible day duck hunting. More entertainment out of Reyer's dog retrieving the decoys than anything else. But, you know, the situation where we're looking at the opposite bank, and I took a photograph that when you show people, ask them where the sky is, they're getting it wrong. Because there's a perfect reflection. Mm-hmm. Now, if you, especially if you're outdoors, you're going to look at it and go, "Oh, that's not right." Yeah, you know, because the color changes and stuff like that. But you know, it's just you see all these insane things. You know, so for me, it's those people maybe respect hunters, because hunters are a valuable tool, whether anybody wants to really admit it or not. I think all of our game and fish, our agencies and our federal agencies understand that.
Mm-hmm. Funded by hunters, licensed.
Funded by hunters, because we were the first ones to step up. 1937, right? Pittman Robertson. So the hunters stood up and said, "Tax us." Yep. Right, so that's still in effect. Dingle Johnson for fishing.
Anybody taking the hunter safety, that's on there. I'm impressed.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah. That's a big deal. Anyways, I'd be interrupting you.
Duck stamp.
Yeah.
You know, that started out being $1. But that was for obviously wetlands and waterfowl. And so hunters have been the ones to step up and say, we want to protect this. And so by taking people out there, they appreciate it. They learn that maybe hunters aren't such bad guys or gals. They are very respectful. They do have high ethics. And, of course, there's always some bad apples, right? But for the most part. And then when it comes time from a conservation perspective, now that if you're not educated in the outdoors, you're not going to understand. Yep. You know, that's the show we should do. We should get somebody in here from Game and Fish.
That'd be awesome.
And just have that discussion, right? Just to have them talk about it, because, you know, a lot of times we go to the easy thing, or what we think, not what's actually true. Yep. Right? And so if you're not, you know, if you haven't lived in that world, it's really hard to comprehend why certain things are set the way they are and seasons are and so on and so forth. And so, but if people can appreciate that by going out, then they may be more likely to vote in favor. Yep. When it comes up, you know, things like that. So it's a million. You know, you talk about firsts. There's so many. I mean,
every season, every year there's something that's a first time. You know,
I mean, I was thinking about that. Like, what's my best first? And it would be really hard. It would be really, really hard. Me personally, it was probably the elk in Colorado.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come on, you've told me that story. That was awesome.
I mean,
that was pretty incredible.
Two guys that don't really know what they're doing. That Buddy says, "Here's some horses," and shows us around, and then says,
"How
See ya."
cool is that?" And
Yeah,
that's
and literally we were like, "Hey, those elk went in and by this tree, so we should sit up there. We know they're in that canyon," and one shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, that would be a good one. Right. I'm not a very emotional person for the most part. Reyer can tell you that. He got to see a lot of emotion that day. So, yeah, that would be a big one. I mean, of course, his first deer, Allie's first deer, Pam's first deer. There's so many strange things that, the bobcat and the sharp tails that we talked about. And I don't even know.
And they'll still be first, right? That to your point.
Won't ever forget it.
Yeah.
Right. No 2 days are the same. You almost always see something you've never seen before, even if it has nothing to do with actually hunting or fishing. Whether it's something like catching a catfish through the ice in February.
Yeah, that's right.
Or seeing some bird, or hearing some call or, whatever it may be. I mean, and when you think about it, if you really want to break it down, every sunrise and sunset is the first and last one that's going to be like that ever. So depending on how detail-oriented you want to be, I mean, you can find something every single time. So
you just got to be aware. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one of the things that I kind of wanted to share and wrap up with you guys was the reading scripture does that to me all the time. Like you just read the gospel. I feel like they've read the gospel 100 times, but in John chapter 21, it's this man. To meet Jesus someday is going to be amazing. So the situation is Jesus is died, and the disciples have seen him in different areas, and Jesus hasn't rose yet, but so they're all fishermen, right? So Peter goes, "I'm going fishing," and they all go. 6 other guys go, "Yeah, let's go fishing." And like what all happens to us, they go fishing all night long, don't catch a thing, nothing. And Jesus is sitting on the shore, and they don't recognize him. And this is, the scene is super cool. He's got a fire, and there's a fish sitting on, cooking on the coals. He's got some bread, and he yells out, "Hey, children, have you caught anything?" And he knows, right? And they're like, "No, we've been out here all night, sir." They don't know it's him, We've been out here all night. We got nothing, And then he's like, "Hey, try the other side of the boat. We've been out here all night, man. Fine." And they do, and they pull in this huge catch of fish. Like I'd always heard that, when he first called, Peter, James, and John. But when this happened, it's such a spectacular thing, they pull it up. So, was this, was he providing for them because, he was their source of everything when he was on the earth, right? And now he's not there, so people not supporting him anymore. And the Bible says they had 142 fish, right? And that's
153, wasn't it?
100, maybe it was 153. I'll have to look at it. I'll go to it. I'll defer to you on this one. But it was a lot of fish.
I don't know.
Right?
That's what I remember.
It's more than a limit. So
yeah, more than a limit. and then right after that he reinstitutes Peter, right? In one of the most you talk about leadership, that when somebody calls somebody out and do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Like, ouch, but yet. That's what the church is built off of, but that's part of mentorship, right?
Yeah.
You got to go through and do that. And what a phenomenal way to and that's the last chapter in John. Like they're going fishing, man, right? And how cool is that? We were talking about this before, and I'm not a poet, but if you guys will indulge me, there's a poem that it's called "The Bridge Builder," that kind of sums up what hopefully we get out of this podcast and a lot of other things that we do here. And so it's called "The Bridge Builder" by William Allen Drumgoole, I believe is his name. So an old man going a lone highway came at evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," said a fellow pilgrim near, "you are wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build the bridge to span the evening tide?" The builder lifted his old gray head. "Good friend, in this path I have come," he said. "There followed after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been as naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him." And that sums it up, I guess, for me is if we can build into the next generation, save them some pitfalls, show them the beauty of a sunset, right? To take advantage of God's creation is early on in life as possible. What you shared with, that's beautiful, man. The fact that you've spoken and poured wisdom into the next generation. Where's that going to go, right? It only goes from there. So that's a powerful thing that Jesus modeled to us, and we're called to do. Could we be quite honest with you, as men and leaders in our families, our communities, and in the church. So,
and they'll do it better than we did.
Amen. And that's our goal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, as they're going across the bridge, they can look down and be like, "Why the heck did he do that?" So you're learning the whole time.
That's good.
Gotta put that pier there. So the one thing at the end here, if hopefully one of these days we get fans. I don't know if that'll happen instead of just our spouses. We'll see.
Well, Gentry's at home, so we got
True.
one today.
Yeah. So if you want to get a hold of us, clubradio@newsongbismarck.com. If you put the subject "Washed in the Wild," and then we're going to be on YouTube one of these days. I believe there's a YouTube channel, but it's long enough that hopefully you'll be able to find it, or we'll get a link out to you, or Reyer's channel too. So
yeah, my it's wildboundmedia is the channel. I mean, obviously you guys will see it on here, and then it's just that name @gmail is the email for that. So I'll put all that in the description, both the new song or the Club Radio stuff as well as mine. So yeah, feel free to reach out, comments, questions, whether it's email or comments underneath the video. Let us know if you got any questions, things you want to cover. We're kind of discussing maybe doing like a mailroom episode at some point down the road where we can address questions, or maybe try to loop them into every episode as we go. I don't know if we don't quite have it figured out yet, but we're open to suggestions. So yeah,
likes and dislikes too. Help us do better.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Turkey hunting or pheasant hunting? Oh man,
turkeys.
I know what you guys are going to say. All right, guys. Appreciate it. That was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a topic that it's easy to go long on.
Mentor.
Oh yeah, we didn't even cover
mentorship, and because you prepare, you think about it beforehand, and like at least for me, I didn't even realize how much stuff ties in until we're actually sitting here talking about it. And I'm just like you say something, I'm just like, man, I never even thought of that. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I feel like this pre-recorded stuff, rehearsed, whatever you might think is like, it seems that way, but I'm learning the whole time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and the other thing, he's talking about the Book of John and throw your net on the other side of the net, on the other side of the boat. That takes me back to 2 years ago. You and I, it was next to the last day of season because the wind was going to blow like 50 miles an hour the last day, and you missed a deer, that earlier, and we were headed out to do our hunt the way we planned. And I remember saying to you when we walked past that cattle tank, I was like, dude, God wants us to kill a deer today. We're going to kill a deer. If he wants us to both kill a deer today,
right. Yes,
we're both going to kill a deer today. And we'd never done that. We'd never both shot a buck on the same day.
That's true.
And guess what happened?
Yeah, that was another first. There was a couple firsts that day. That was my first mule deer buck. That was our first double. Yeah, well, maybe just those two. But either way.
That's
that was
spectacular.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. I mean, it was, we 3 bullets into those 2 deer, and all 3 of them were great shots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they weren't massive, so like, as much as shooting a big deer is great, the pack out wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was funny because he shot his deer, and we quartered it out, and I took half, and he was adjusting his pack or something. I said, hey, I'm going to walk up here and check this plum thicket out, this coulee out. And I was just walking along, and I got probably, I don't know, halfway to. I think it was 222 yards from where his deer fell. Because I think
about right.
I think I was like, this is crazy, but I saw something that wasn't right in the plums and glassed it, and it was an antler.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately lay down, get rid of meat, my pack and everything, and because like it's line of sight right to it, and so he comes along and he sees me laying down, and he knows what's going on, so he crawls up to me, and I ended up filling the other tag, like I don't know what it was.
Well, so that was even on the same hunt. Like you still had the meat on you.
Oh yeah,
I had half the meat.
We
on
were
my
still
back.
we were still
so
2
awesome.
miles from the 1.5 miles from the pickup, and I had the meat on me because he had taken a couple quarters and went to continue looking.
Yeah.
Didn't make it very far. Spotted the deer, and then he's like, "I'm going to shoot him." When he stands up, and I mean, we were putting the tag on him. It maybe had been 2.5 hours since I had shot mine. Maybe not even that long. So yeah, I mean, we just packed up, did the whole thing over again, and kept on walking.
I'm assuming made a few trips because you.
No, it was
you
one
got
trip.
2 deer on. Yeah. Well, no kidding.
I had one, he had one.
And we lost a little meat, but
on mine
in the process. But it was. Yeah, I mean they weren't. We took care of it.
Right.
Each carried 3 quarters, or I think it was, or one of us carried 4 or 3. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned that, if we're talking about for next time that, like, I remember, you said that identification of wildlife, right? Being able to, like, whitetail versus mule deer, right? Or mallard versus pintail, like that kind of, or, walleye versus a northern, right? Stuff like that. It's odd after a while. Like I like when I first moved out here too, and because I had only ever really seen whitetail, and when I started hunting, it was like, man, how am I going to tell? You got the main beam thing, you got the tail. Like how do I? And now you just like that's that. You get a glance and that's a mule deer, right? It's like, but how do you explain that to someone, right?
repetition.
Yeah.
Well, when you start out, I mean, we've both done it many times. Like you take somebody new out and you start showing them pictures on Google Images or whatever, and they don't always get it right. Understandably so.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's almost you almost got to just swallow your pride a little bit in those moments and be like, I've been doing this for a while. This person's new, like, you know, because it seems so obvious, you know. But these guys, like, out here, like, that waterfowl hunt like crazy. I mean, they'll probably laugh at hearing me say that I don't know if I can tell the difference between a gadwall and a widgeon flying through the air unless the sun's beating on it and it's right up in my face. You know, they'd probably be like, "That's crazy. How do you not?" You know.
Yeah.
So it's different for everybody, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's easy to take those skills for granted sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, as you get used to doing, you know, you've done it for a while.
I think the appreciation increases dramatically when you, like in the spring especially, you hear a sound and then somebody tells you that's what's making that sound.
Yeah, definitely.
So you draw the connection to the two, right? Now all of a sudden, that's where I think there's some excitement that comes up because people are like, well, what's making that sound? Wood ducks are a good one in the spring because they cry, scream, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Or bald eagles with people that haven't been out a lot. That's another one that, you know, they always like play them in movies, and it's a red-tailed hawk sound.
Yeah.
But then you hear that real quick chirping of the eagles and stuff, and that's one that I've explained a few times where people are like, what is that? And it's bald eagles. And then they see one flying and hear it, and they're just like, well, what the heck? That's not, you know, not what I thought, but that's one of my favorite sounds, so that's always a cool one for me. I just love listening to them. But
Oh, shoot, that could be another one. Yeah, what's your...
Well, see, there's a bad part of this, like understanding it and knowing it, is that Pam really hates it when we're watching something and they have something
it's a red-tailed
that's
hawk.
inaccurate.
yeah, they call it a rifle and it's a shotgun.
Yeah.
Well,
the
animals,
eagle sound.
that's not a whitetail. You know? How do you, that's not a black bear, that's a grizzly bear. You know, things like that. She's just like, will you just stop? You're taking the fun out of watching this, you know, type of thing. I'm like, I'm sorry, it just bugs me.
It's just wrong.
To me, it is.
Well, it's important. Like in Montana, you have to pass a bear identification test in order to get a bear tag.
Really?
They're over the counter, but you have to take I think it's a 20 or 30 or question test online where you identify black bears versus grizzly bears, and it's like cubs too, like everything. And it's kind of, at least from what I remember, it gets gradually harder as you go. But in the beginning, it's like cut and dry, brown, black, hump, no hump, you know, kind of thing. But then you get towards the end and they start showing you cubs and they start showing you younger bears and they show you weird angles and stuff. And it's just like, man, like you start realizing like, yeah, this, it takes a little bit of looking, but the more you do it, you know, it just gets easier and easier. And, so it's not all just, you know, fun and games. Like there are places, depending on what you're looking to do, that it's necessary skill to have. So,
yeah, and it's, you know, to your point, it's repetition. So how many, you know, this would be another one to talk about that nobody's really proud of, but, you know, how often do you eat your tag, right? You know, at the end of the year, and we kind of have this wall out at the farm that the boys and I just started. They got 2 from last year that I gave them a hard time. They figured it out this year, but you know, the passing up your shots kind of thing, and doing something that you're comfortable with versus I'm not sure what that was, you know, like being that, having that much humility to go, you know, I'm not comfortable taking this shot, is, you know, that's I got a lot of respect for people that do that versus, I don't know, shoot it and see, we'll tag it when we see what drops, right?
definitely.
Yeah, and we just, you know, that's a hard one when you're, especially you're the mentor, right? There's the deer. To you, it's a very simple, easy shot, right? But getting that new person comfortable.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they can't. They don't have experience to draw on where they could say like, "Oh, I've made a shot similar to this," you know, and not every shot's different, but it's also, especially with just distances, it's like, "Oh, I've shot further than that, so I know I can make this if I know my gun's on," kind of thing. It helps a lot, you know.
And it's, you know, that critter's walking a little bit. It's not running, because we talked about this yesterday. I don't take running shots because I can't hit a running critter.
Right there with you.
But, you know, when you get somebody, but that's most of the deer that I've shot, they're like walking slowly,
right,
head down, up. You know, there's a doe in the way. Wait, you know, you guys talked about that and how I'm going to find my shot. I'm going to, you know, my sight picture that they're walking through, like, Here's where I'm at. I'm moving them. You know, get the flow of them. And that's one of the things that I tried to teach both my boys is, you know, no matter what they were on, whenever we saw a deer, rifles unloaded, safety's on, but just get on them and practice, right?
Yeah.
Take your breaths, and then see how it's going to go. Because, yeah, if you do that for the first time on the deer you shoot the very first time, I don't know how successful you're going to be, right? You can shoot a lot of paper, but it's different.
I still do that a lot. I do
adrenaline.
practice, like when I'm hunting alone, especially. I do practice stalks. Like I stalked on a spike horn that was off the property this year because I could get within 150 yards of them and be like 25 yards from the boundary. Got set up on them, you know, got my scope figured out, and like I was going to shoot and everything. I mean, I try to do that whenever it's slow and I see a deer or whatever. I think that's something that you should never quit doing.
I agree.
Because it's, you know, it definitely helps to have experience, but it's also a little bit, you got to keep the wheels greased. I think, you know, you can't, if you quit for a couple of years or don't practice that stuff. I mean, I think you may not feel like you've lost it, but you definitely can lose some of it. So,
and it's fun. I mean,
it's
come on.
not,
yeah.
and it's not hard, right? I mean,
right. I feel like the stocks are way higher percentage when you're doing them for practice than when you're actually doing them for the real thing.
that's probably because you're relaxed.
Yeah.
Yes.
That adrenaline's
right.
not kicking in.
Got him 100% of the time.